Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's I'm going to be doing a fuel economy test with the new Hurricane engine in the Ram 1500. So here's how this video is going to work. We are going to drive this Ram Hurricane from Heber City, Utah, which is about 5,000 feet elevation, all the way up to over 7,000 feet in Park City, Utah. Round trip, this is going to be over 40 miles of driving. Most of it's going to be what you'd consider highway driving, but it's up a bunch of steep grades because again, you're going from 5,000 feet to over 7,000 feet. So this should give us a good idea of, you know, how the Hurricane performs at high elevation, but also if it's actually economical at the limit of what most people will push this truck through when it comes to, you know, on-road driving. So with that being said, a huge shout out and thank you to the Karl Malone Dodge Ram here in Heber for making this video possible. They are lending me this truck, so I really appreciate that. Link to their website in the description down below. Link to my car buying guide in the description down below as well. Let's get into it. So quickly, just to give you guys the facts before we start driving, this is a twin-turbo 3-liter inline 6. It produces 420 horsepower and then 469 pound-feet of torque. Fuel economy is supposed to be 17 around town and then 24 on the highway. Now this should be pretty straightforward. All I'm going to do is just reset the computer right here, and then once we get back to the Dodge dealership here in Heber after everything's all done, we'll see what the number ends up being with the new Hurricane. I figure aside from showing a clip of the final fuel economy, I would talk about how this Hurricane engine performs. First off, we're in Heber right now, so like I said, just over 5,000 feet in elevation, and I want to talk about the around town driving with the Hurricane because it's very interesting. So first off, starting up the truck, this new engine is dead quiet. Like the Hemi, right, you got that rumble. I got in the truck with Josh that works at the Dodge dealership, and I pressed the start button, and then I was like, oh, I don't think the truck turned on. So then I turned it off and then turn it back on, and I'm like, I don't think it started up. And he's like, no, the truck's on. And I was like, wait a second. And then I was like, oh, the truck's actually, I looked at the RPMs and the truck was on. Like, you can't even, the startup is even so quiet that if you're not really paying attention, you don't even notice that it starts up. It's crazy how quiet this engine is. Like, as I'm driving, I can hear the air conditioning going a little bit here, but which I'll turn down some, but I don't really notice anything else. Like, I can, as a driver, I can feel the engine, but you just don't. It's so quiet. It's very interesting. I'm worrying if, the typical Ram buyer is going to like that or not, because they're used to that, Hemi rumble. What I will say is, so far, I mean, it's almost 20 miles per gallon. Now, that's surely going to dip quite a bit once we start doing the climb that's going to be coming in the near future. But, I mean, right off the bat, it seems like it's got enough torque that you can just kind of keep going, and it's not a struggle whatsoever. So I think they've done a good job with just how the engine delivers power, so that it lends to it being, helping it be economical with having all that torque where you don't really have to push too hard to keep up with the flow of traffic and all of that. This is probably the first interesting part of the video, in my opinion. Leaving Heber, we've got this first hill. Some of you from the East Coast might call this a mountain. Here in Utah, we call this a hill. And we're gonna be going up this, which again is gonna push the engine. It'll show us where the RPMs sit with this as well. So far, I'm able to keep my speed hovering right around 2,000 RPMs. It's actually pretty impressive. Fuel economy is obviously dipping down a bit, but yeah, 9 miles per gallon is what it's showing the current instant fuel economy. So again, this isn't accelerating, this is just keeping our speed. And this is something to note about these turbocharged engines is, they've got really good torque, but sometimes that's accelerating a little bit. But yeah, sometimes they gotta work a little bit harder on the stuff like this. With those turbos. Those turbos spool up and it start just chomping through gas. But I mean, this is a pretty decent change in elevation. It's impressive that it can just hover right around 2,000 RPMs. Like, some cars, you know, even like I'd say the Hemi would have to, in this situation, would probably have to downshift, you know, be going a little bit higher RPMs, but this has enough low-end torque that the engine doesn't seem to have to work all that hard. That's cool. We've got our next hill climb here, and again, so far it's been a pretty uneventful drive. I've literally not downshifted once, which is crazy, and then yeah, it's just been hovering right around 2,000 RPMs, kind of just going up and down. Again, you can see the fuel economy. When we were in town, we were almost getting like 20 miles per gallon is what our average was, and now we've dropped down to 14. So not really looking like it's any more economical from a gas guzzling perspective compared to the Hemi, but it does seem like it, I don't know, oh, there we go, there's our first downshift. Like I say, it does seem like it doesn't struggle as much. But it's impressive, the torque with the standard output. I think they've done a pretty good job with the tune here. Man, if we are cresting this, this is like we just got over the two biggest sections, and we're at 13.5. Coming back down, I mean, I think we're actually going to get a pretty high fuel economy number in this test. I think there's definitely potential for that. And I guess coming through here, we'll see what the downhill is like. Oh, just popped my ears. Got some elevation bubbles. Yeah, just 2,000 feet for me is just enough to, well, if I go, I feel like for me personally, if I go above 6,000 feet, that's when I start to get the bubbles, and it usually happens every 1,000 feet. It's kind of a weird thing that I've noticed. Going a little bit quicker than I thought. This truck's got so much power, it kind of gets away from you, and it's so well insulated too. Yeah, I mean, downhill's not, honestly, it's not exciting. It's pretty normal with how it drives from the downhill perspective. I guess I'll use this section here to cap things off for my initial driving impressions for this fuel economy test with the new Hurricane engine. It's a solid powertrain. It does remind me quite a bit of the EcoBoost that's in the Fords in terms of, you know, just the torque that it has, the power that it has, just all of that performance. It's very EcoBoost-esque, if I do say so myself. So it's kind of an interesting situation with that. But yeah, again, it's got great torque, and the one thing I will say compared to the Hemi that it's not just the sound, it's like the character. Like this engine, this can get me in trouble maybe, it doesn't have any character like the Hemi. Like the Hemi, you got that rumble and just how it performs and everything. Like there's a little bit of an emotion to it. This is dare I say German in a way, where there's just no, it's good at what it does, and that's pretty much it. Like it's kind of like the, I don't know, it's kind of like what do they call, like the surgeon example that, you know, some journalists will use, where it's so precise, it's great, right? The RPMs, they're always low, and it's got so much torque, and, you know, fuel economy seems to be reasonable so far, but the sound, it's kind of, there's not really any sound at all. And it's not like it's not an engine where you want to, you get into it to accelerate, but you don't really get into it because you're like, I want to hear that hurricane rumble, because there's not really a hurricane rumble. So performs well, but yeah, there's definitely a loss of character with this powertrain compared to the outgoing Hemi. And I will say the truck, it drives pretty much the same as the outgoing version. I haven't really noticed a difference in, you know, handling, suspension performance, or any of that. It seems like it's all the same. The seats are, I think, a little bit more comfortable, but outside of that, the truck's very similar. So with that being said, let me know what you guys think about the driving, and I'm gonna be doing some stuff over here in Park City, and then once I'm done with that, drive back to Heber, and then I'll give you guys a final clip showing what my fuel economy was over the course of, it's like 40 something miles, and an elevation gain and then an elevation loss of 2,000 feet, from 5,000 to 7,000 feet. Well, as you can see, with the steering wheel turning, we are back here at the Dodge store, and 18.9 is what I averaged. Just over 40 miles and going up 2,000 feet and back down 2,000 feet in elevation. So to quickly cap things off, I'm actually super impressed with this new Hurricane powertrain. Again, torque was really good going up and down through the mountains, and I mean, that's pretty good fuel economy for going from 5,000 to 7,000 feet elevation with a big full-size pickup truck. Yeah, it's unloaded. I think that's still pretty impressive. Almost 20 miles per gallon in a full-size pickup truck at this elevation. That's pretty cool overall. Like I said earlier in the video though, the sound, you are missing the sound. So my kind of final thoughts on this little test here, I think the Hurricane has potential to be a better engine for most people compared to the Hemi if it's reliable. That's the one big thing, if it's reliable. If it's not as reliable as the Hemi, then I think it's going to be a hard sell for people, because the fuel economy looks like it's better, but it's not like way, well, I mean, it depends on how you drive your truck, but it doesn't look like it's like way better compared to what you can get in a Hemi. I mean, you could probably get like 15, 16 in a Hemi. I mean, some of the people that watch this channel might get closer to 12 because, you know, you've got got like a brick tied to the bottom of your foot for some reason. Not sure why, but you know what happens? It happens. So regardless, let me know what you guys think about this whole situation with the whole fuel economy. And now it's 18.8 because I've been sitting here for long enough. But yeah, let me know what you think about the fuel economy situation. Do you think this new Hurricane engine is worth going for, or are you going to hold on to your Hemi?